back as a teen in Los Angeles, uh, I got connected to a friend who used to run around Hollywood doing extras parts, trying to be an actor. And so we'd become friends, and we talked. And he said to me that there's a new movie coming up by John Carpenter, and it's called Christine. It's about some kind of demon car. And it's going in for production, and they need extras. And would I be interested? And I said, sure. So I took off from work that day. I took off from work for the part, and my flatmate at that time, my roommate at the time, drove me to the set. And it was at a stadium, and we were to sit on the bleachers, and they had all the cameras and the car, everything set up in the stadium, and they had tracks and all that. You know, where they have a car and they have tracks, and they have the camera rolling on the tracks going back and forth. And so what happens when the car was doing something and then the characters going in and out, they would signal us, and all of us in the bleachers would like wave flags to go, yay! And we did that the whole day. And it was wonderful because it was like, I don't know, I think it was about $150 for that day. At that time, that was a lot of money. And we got a free lunch because it went over schedule. We got a free lunch. We got $150, and I was in the bleachers for the movie Christine by John Carpenter. And while I was in the bleachers, there was a guy next to me, and his name was Billy Crystal. And I suspected his surname wasn't real, but anyways, Billy Crystal. He was real friendly. He was real nice. This guy in his mid-20s, older than me. And he was married to a lady in her 40s who produced all the original Planet of the Apes. And so I was like, oh, wow. I said, because the Planet of the Apes are some of my favorite movies. And so we started going out together, me and this new friend. You know, we go play pool sometimes, or we go see a movie, just buddies, just friends. And so when he got to know me better, he invited me to his house. And he lived in Beverly Hills with his wife. And I was like, would she mind if I came over? He says, no. He says, as long as you're my friend, it's fine. So I went over with him. He drove a van. I went over with him, and we drove to this big house in Beverly Hills. And when we walked in, it was a huge house, and there was a middle-aged lady there, quite pleasant, and it was his wife. And Billy introduced me to his wife. We had a few pleasantries, had a drink, and then he took me to the backyard. And what was incredible was in their backyard, they had a big yard. They had all the props from Planet of the Apes. You know, in Planet of the Apes, they had one ape that was real tall and big, like 2 stories, and he was supposed to be the lawgiver. They had a couple of other ape props and ape statue props. She had all the props there. All the props from the movie. And I just went to her backyard and just looked at all the props. Too bad I didn't take any pictures of me and the props. And then after looking at that, we came in, and I sat down and had a light dinner with them. She was very, very nice. And we were talking, and she told me that she had done a few movies, produced, but her favorite actor at that time was David Soul. And I remember David Soul was in a vampire movie, which I saw him in. Yeah, he was in a movie called Salem's Lot. And I'd watched that, so I'd remember David Soul from Salem's Lot. Anyway, she told me that that was her favorite actor. We had some niceties, and then me and Billy, we took off. And we went to kind of ride around West Hollywood. He liked to ride around in his van in West Hollywood. And sometimes he would do some narcotics, which I was not into. And before he dropped me off that day, he said to me, hey, I know you do a lot of meditation. I know you do chanting and meditation, and I'm going to give you something that really enhances your meditation. That's going to make you go on a really, really powerful meditation trip. And so he parked in front of my apartment, which is Fenmore Apartments on Sunset Boulevard at that time. I was living there for a short while. And he parked his van, and he passed me a white piece of paper. It was a small piece of paper, 1 inch by 1 inch, square. and it had a blue purple dot on it. And he says, when I go and do my meditation tonight, put that piece of paper under my tongue and then just close my mouth and let it dissolve and meditate. So I said, I don't need that. I have good meditations without anything. And I said, what is that? Is that ink? He says, no, it's not ink. It's really cool. And he wouldn't tell me what it was. And I don't know what it was. So anyways, I said, okay, bye, Billy. You know, I'll see you another day. We'll hang out together. And so I went to my apartment and I kept it on the side. And I did my prayers. I did my meditations and my sadhana. And then another one of my friends from upstairs in the building came down. And his name was David. So I showed David that piece of paper. And he said to me, oh, that's acid. I said, what's acid? He says, acid is a type of drug that you put under your tongue and it dissolves in your bloodstream and you go on a really psychedelic trip. He says, if you're in a good mood, you go on a good trip. If you're in a bad mood, you're sad, you go on a really bad trip. And the trip can last 3 to 6 hours depending on how strong the dosage is. It could be all night. It could be days. And I was like not really happy with Billy because he's like trying to get me to do acid without me knowing. I don't think he had any bad intent, but you know, that's what people were doing in the 80s back then. But I didn't do it. So it was kind of interesting because these are some of the interesting friends that I'd met. And Billy was a nice guy. And it was fun doing the Christine extra for John Carpenter's film. I got good pay. And also I got to see the props from Planet of the Apes and meet his wife, who was the producer and one of the producers. She was somehow involved with that movie. And it was quite an interesting, you know, little recollection I had when I was in Los Angeles.